We come together to allow you the gift of mourning your loss and not lose patience. For grief is nature's way of healing a broken heart. Our tears cleanse our soul. My name is Tanya Scotisi, and I'm honored and privileged to be your celebrant here this afternoon. As we gather together to remember, to honor, and to celebrate Pat's life. This most vibrant woman has left quite a legacy. It is our hope that every part of this service will honor a life lived amongst us, who has now moved ahead of us to be greeted into the gates of heaven with open arms, and to be reunited once again by those who have preceded her, including her daughter Nancy, who again she'll be reunited with. I'm sure everyone in this room would like to join me in saying to her two children, Cliff and Dawn, in addition to her two sisters, Teresa and Catherine, her grandchildren, Tricia and Christopher, and many of you extended family, close friends, relatives, that you all hold a special place with this family. Remember, life as you knew it with Pat in it will not be the same. It will be different. But everyone here, we come together to support you with your journey. I'd like to share with you a poem before we begin with the adventures of Pat. It's called The Dash, and it's written by Linda Ellis. I read of a person who stood to speak at the funeral of her friend. She referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. She noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But she said what mattered most of all was that little dash between those years. For that little dash represents all the time that she has spent alive here on earth. And now only those who loved her knew what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live in love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things that you'd like to change? For we never know how much time is left. We could all be a dash mid-range. If we could all just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel. And be quick less to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we can treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your own life actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? The word adventure, as found in the dictionary, reads, a journey of experience, stepping into the unknown, living with passion, or doing something with passionate nature and extremeness. Now this can describe the life and times of Pat. Her life was an incredible adventure, and each of you in this room were lucky enough to be passengers on her ride. She opened her arms and took everything in. She was strong, vibrant, intense, who lived by her own rules. Independence, business savvy, and strength, and also her generosity. Let us pause for a moment to ponder and revel in the amazing adventures of Pat. For the adventure of family, Thomas Jefferson once said, the happiest moments of my life have been the few which I have been passed at home in the heart of my family. Now every adventure has to begin somewhere. Pat was born January 13, 1923 in New York City. She graduated from New York University, majoring in physical education. She was a high school phys ed teacher in Montgomery County, Maryland. There she was a role model and inspiration to all the young girls who she inspired and educated. Now Robert Frost once said, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference to me. Pat was definitely goal-driven and set high benchmarks for herself. She excelled at everything that she took on. They say that if you love what you do and have no money affixed to it, you will excel. And this is how Pat lived her life. She was highly successful and had this innate nature of being financially savvy. A great business sense just was born with her. And her extremely well-organized nature did help her in her many career. Her life was her office, as many of you may have seen here, even at Jacaranda Trace. She was always busy in her office. She also enjoyed cooking and teaching, and became a mentor to many of her colleagues. The adventures of travel, we are remembered that Nobel Peace Prize winner Dag Hammarskjöld once said, "Only he who keeps his eye fixed on the far horizon will find his right road." Now, after being a phys ed teacher, Pat later was a diplomat's wife, having lived in many foreign lands, Germany, France, Paris. After France, she was a highly successful realtor in Bethesda, where she operated and owned her own brokerage firm. She became, in a 1 year's time, $1 million producer, being the top producer in the county. Again, not only in her company, but within the whole county. And she was admired by all her peers within the field. For the adventure of friends, we are reminded that William Wordsworth once said that the best portion of a good man's life are the little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of life. Now, Pat was compassionate and strong, sweet yet opinionated, vibrant and generous. She was so generous with her time, whoever needed it. And she could always put a smile on everyone's face. She was also an excellent communicator. And for those who don't know, being an excellent communicator actually means listening and not talking. Now, Pat had to listen to every client that she had to help them find their home of their dreams. Confidence and trust was something that, again, was innate with Pat. The highest level of integrity, from serving as a mentor from young women to being respected well amongst her peers and working to the highest level of her ability to being the top realtor. Let's not forget her passion for golfing and boating, too. Those are things that she truly enjoyed. As we continue with Pat's adventure, the philanthropist Sir Wilfrid Grinfield reminds us that the service that we render to others is really the rent that we pay for this room on earth. It is obvious that man himself is a traveler, but the purpose of this world is not to have and to hold, but to give and to serve. One of Pat's greatest accomplishments was her years of dedication, being dedicated in every sense of the word, dedicated to her family, to her friends. She was always well loved, well received, and well respected. A woman who lived life to its fullest with the people that meant the most to her. And each one in this room today, are you all circle of her friends? She was touched by everyone who she came in contact to. She was competitive by nature, climbing her professional realtor ladder, but her achievements. She was a workaholic, but passionate. She had always found the time for friends and for family, who she loved dearly. At this time, I'd like to call upon her son, Cliff, who will also share some words.
I too want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my mother's life. My mother was truly a remarkable woman. She was this isn't going to work. have to hold this up. Is the mic? Yeah, the microphone's on. Okay. Okay, I think we'll do a little better now. I was saying that Mother was my rock when I was growing up and even into my adulthood. She was the one person who I could always depend on to give me the steadiness and the assurance, the consistency when I was growing up. She was a caring and generous person to a fault, as anybody who knows her knows. And she certainly had a full life. She had children, grandchildren, and so many people who loved and admired her. I remember how effortlessly she made friends out of strangers, and that contributed to her success in the real estate field. I can remember she would tell me that when people would walk up to her and say, "Oh, Pat, how do you do it? How do you become so successful in selling homes?" And she would say, "I never sell real estate. I only sell myself." And that was my mother's attitude. That's what led to her success. And I think we can all take something positive away from that. I'd like to quote a couple other of her sayings that Dawn and I took to heart, sometimes to our own detriment, but we certainly adhered to the same principles that my mother taught us. And one was, and I will never forget these words, "Nothing is worth doing unless it's worth doing well." I know everybody's heard that before, but those were words that my mother lived by, and Dawn and I lived by them to a fault. My mother was the kind of person who would succeed at anything. I'm sure that you know people who are like this. And anything that she had chosen to take on, teaching phys ed, selling real estate, anything that she had chosen to do, she would have been highly successful at. She was just one of those people. She wasn't famous, but she could have been. And I wrote in the obituary that she touched so many people in so many ways and affected so many people's lives. And she was a mentor to so many people. One of the things that, I think I may not be holding this up, one of the things that always amazes me at gatherings like this is people are multifaceted. And there are many people here who knew Mother from one facet in their life, but didn't know necessarily about the other facets or the people that knew Mother from those other contacts. So I'm glad we're all able to gather here together, whatever facet of my mother's life we were involved in. I'm sorry about this. I can't do this without my notes. There's one story about Mother that I'd like to tell. And this is not so much about how she touched another person's life, but how another person, a total stranger, touched her life. Her mother had 2 jobs scrubbing floors for a living to save the money for my mother to go to college. On the way to register for classes, my mother left her purse on the subway. And this is in New York City, mind you. So she gets home, tells her mother what's happened, and her mother says, "I'm sorry, Patsy, that was all the money I had. You can't go to college now." And later that evening, there was a knock on the door, and two young boys returned her purse to her with the money still in the purse. And the boy's mother waited out on the sidewalk and sent her boys up to do this. And if it hadn't been for that dear mother, I'm sorry, I keep lowering this on that. Yeah, that works better, doesn't it? Okay. And so if it hadn't been for that mother of the two boys, my mother would not have gone to college that year. She would not have met my father, and none of us would be in this room today. And I'd just like to add parenthetically, what a great life lesson that must have been for those two boys. And I just think of that story sometimes, and I just wonder what happened to that mother and those two boys. Of course, I'll never know, but it's something I think about. I'd like to read a poem written by Mary Elizabeth Clark in 1932. And I'm sure that some of you are already familiar with this poem, but I would like to recite it. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep.